Well, when these pins are like this, and that is properly seized in there, it should be seized into the frame, not into the hinge itself. But when it's properly seized in like that, the only way to get them out is to cut the centre section out, cut the two ends off, drill it. It's the only way you're going to do it. So that's what I'm going to do next. They are nearly always salvageable. I've never yet fucked one of these up. It's just hit me with the challenge stick, isn't it? Right, okay, let's go and cut these off. So just use a cutting disc. Usual precautions, folks. Cut the ends off, cut the centres off, drill. I should add, once you cut the centre section out, it's always worth giving it a go to see if you can drift it. It's unlikely, but it's worth a go. You can put some heat in it, but I tend not to like heating these cast iron parts. The heat soak is just too great. You need like a induction heater or something like that. It ends up being quicker drilling these fucking things out. But we'll see. Let me go and bang it with a drift and we'll see. It shifted. So what I do now is I cut it again and keep banging it towards the middle for now. And eventually it will come and I'll clear one side out. So yeah, I'm surprised at that. That was the one that had broken. Snapped off. So yeah, just cut the middle section out. Keep banging inwards. Yeah, that was it as far as the good luck went. I got one out. That's just me punch dropped down onto the floor. Dale's punches. Bought those for me. That's very nice of you, Dale. Thank you. Working on Dale's car. Yeah, one of these ends has got splines on it. And so that one would really want to come out this way. This one similarly. I've been banging from this end. I'm inclined to drill it and see if I can get some heat into it through the drill rather than the blow lamp. I think. I'll try this one first of all. I'll drill this one. These bastard things. Right, they're out. I had to drill them out to within a millimetre of 3/4 of the edge, and even then they was tight. They're out. Nice one. Okay, so wheel arch, chopped it out. I need to take all this this sound deadening out. Let me get myself out. So get all this sound deadening out. And I'm putting shadow across it there. As I said already, I'm not going to worry about any of this shit up here. There's a big patch on the other side of it. It's just counterproductive. I'm just not going to get time to do all of that. But what I'll do, and you can see here that when I peel the sound deadening back, the rust that's underneath it. And this, unfortunately, is typical. As you've seen time and time again on these videos, it is typical. I then work out what the fuck I'm going to do about this, because the LPG pipes run right underneath it, so I can't really put a lot of weld into that. What I'm inclined to do is to clean all this lot up and see if I can pop a bit of plate over there to tidy it up. There is the bolt, or the stud, that holds down the whatever that thing, mud flap bracket, you silly arse. And this thing, I mean, I persuaded the customer that he really needed new ones. Yeah, and I think these are kind of, they've got to their sell-by date ready. So what I'm going to try and do here, because these original rubber mats, they've actually got more strength in them, I believe, than the reproduction ones. So I'm going to extract those carefully and pop them on, weld that section in. I'll show you in a minute. Tidy this up, treat the rust, pop rivet something in there. Because I'm just about worried. I don't want to have to move all of the LPG pipes, and that is going to need replacing at some point, as is that. But let's just get it so it's ship shape. Apart from a little bit of seam sealer and some paint, that's the passenger side arch welded up. Sorry, I've been shifting stuff around in the boat and I thought, oh shit, I haven't filmed anything. I don't know what I'm going to do down here yet. I'm thinking about that. That just opened up with the zip wheel. Fuck that. Pile of crap's growing on this side, so I couldn't get the bolts out that go through the floor. I mean, they're rusty as fuck. They really are. So I gave up with those. I thought I'd just undo the base box from the top mountings, and then we've got this.
I do love it when people set fire to trim when they're fucking welding. Look at that. Beautiful, that. Nice job. You can see here the plate goes down to about here. I'm not going to worry about anything above that. It is what it is and it ain't what it ain't. So really I need to weld a plate from here and down. Now, it needs to go pretty much straight across to here and then straight down to there. Now you can see the obvious problem. What the fuck am I going to do? Well, I'm going to wrap it up with a heat blanket. And be fucking careful is what I'm going to do. There's no fuel in it. There really isn't. And there's no smell of fumes around here. Fire extinguisher at the ready. That's all I can do. The alternative would be to pop rivet a replacement plate in. I'll have to have a chat with the customer about that, I think. It is quite risky. Well, that is, couldn't really be welding any closer to the fuel inlet, could I? So by leaving this lip here and putting a plate on top with lots of kind of Sikaflex and so forth in between it and the inner arch, I might get away with that. The alternative is taking the fuel tank out. To get the fuel tank out, you need to get the tow bar bracket off. To get the tow bar bracket off, you need a day and a half, maybe two, and a lot of swearing. Yeah. I think what I'll do here though is I'm going to put a primer. Actually, what I'm going to do first of all is treat this fucking rust. Treat the rust, spray a primer, paint under seal over the top of it. This side's done. Yeah, now I'm fucked up about this. Even though I can't smell the fuel, there is a risk. They're putting quite a lot of, heat and so forth. It's very, very, very close to the fuel tank. So my inclination is to pop rivet and glue. I probably could get away, you see, with welding this curtain here, which is completely separated away from the side of the car. I could probably get away with welding a piece in up here, just not right down here. What do you reckon? What do you reckon? What would you do? What would you do? Well, you said it to a bloke like me, wouldn't you? That's what you'd do. Again, on that plate at the top there, I could probably weld that onto the inside. That might be safer. So the piece, this piece that I'm talking about up here, I could do an L section and weld it onto the inside up there. That's going to put the strength back into the arch, which is wobbly, and the side curtain, which is just not attached. Oh, fuck's sake. It's a fucking shambles, really. It's what it is. It's a fucking shambles. I mean, even with a blanket over there. So let's find a fire blanket. There's one over there. Bum 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 bum. In global news today, we have got treacherous backstabbing bastards. Get out of here, cunt. Right. If I were to wrap that up like that, do you know that might fucking work? It might work. Oh, crikey mooses. Right, let's get on with it. Fuck it. This thing is completely in the bloody way, so what I need to do is to really move it. That comes off there. And there's a earth connection comes off the other side. I'll take these out of there, this box can come out then. It's fucking in. I welded it in, nowhere near as much weld down here. The only precaution first of all, the tank is empty, and secondly, I squirted a bloody great load of CO in here before I started, because obviously if there's no oxygen, then there's no vapours going to ignite. Please don't try this at home, kids. Do not try it at home. Tank needed to come out really, but... Well, after the rust treatment, I've brush painted on a 2-pack primer, which has now gone off. All of the bare areas, I've still not done anything with that yet, but as you can see, all the bare areas where I've been working and where the rust treatment has gone in, that's all covered up. Give that 24 hours to go off, and then I can put a top coat over the top of it. Right, then in other news, I've been messing around with the rear wing. So, driver's side rear wing, I'm not going to worry about any of this stuff here for now, just, it is what it is. The problem we've got is why this has kind of bubbled through and onto the outside. You can see that the underseal very clearly here has failed. Again, not just going to dig too hard, but just going to loosen all that crap up. Second thing is there should be a bracket along here that allows the wing to bolt onto the outer panel, and you can see that is entirely made up of gloop. Entirely. So I really don't know. That is ridiculous. And you can see here where the original panel has completely rotted out. So what I need to do is to possibly, because that's where the return edge should be there, see if I can take out the original steel, make up a new section, and pop rivet it on through the edge here. Allow me to secure the wings. Both sides are the same. Both sides are as bad as each other. The other one is in here. Go past this side. I've got to seam seal this before I have top coating, by the way. This one, similarly, it's just full of shite. It's going to need fixing. Not quite sure what I'm going to do about it yet. The customer did ask me to see if I could make it a bit better. So I think really I'm going to have to get the knife in here to cut this off first of all, see what's going on, and then make up a repair section. So all the usual sort of assembly issues going on now. So basically the section that goes on the inside edge of this wing, as you saw already, have been replaced with silicone. And I made up an L section, a couple of bolts on the inside, and then just drill a single hole, pop rivet it through. It allows me to position the wing where I want it to go. Okay, so that one's good. And this one, didn't that close nicely, by the way? And this one similarly. I use a little bit of my standard silicone sealant up here and along the inside edge down here, just to bond it in place. Before you go berserk on this, by the way, double check that you have reconnected the electrics for the fuel flap. Because if you put all this together and then you find, ah, shit, I forgot it, there is an access patch here which you can access the back end of the electrics through, but then if you put the Barry base back in, then you know you're going to be swearing. Yeah, so outer panel's back on. I've pop riveted. This is the section that holds the rear lower seal on. I put a load of my seam seal underneath it. I've painted the underside of it, zinc coated already, painted the underside, pop riveted it into place. Okay, there's a chance that will rot before the cross member, so it just gives us a fighting chance to be able to replace something in the event it rots out. And again, on the trailing edge, put a seam seal between it and the back end of the car. Try and keep some of those nasty exhaust fumes out. Rattle can black underneath the Barry base box, and this side kind of is going back together again. I've got to put the seals back on. Rear tyre sensor, Dale's got this low pressure tyre thing, it's been driving me up the fucking wall. So I hope I haven't done it damage, Dale, but I looked at the top and there was a button on the top because I took the sensor off and it went even more nuts. So yeah, I just found a button on the top and I pressed it, and I think it's just, oh, the battery looks like it's flat as well. So it'll stop beeping at me anyway. And you can see, try my best to get the gaps right and the the wing in the right place. So that's the wings secured back in place, pop riveted down the closing edge, that's standard on both sides. Right, I'm going to go and have a coffee now. It is Sunday, it's 24 degrees, and it is 2 o'clock. Time for coffee, I think. Another couple of hours and I'm going to head home for a gin. Actually more than a couple of hours, won't it? Try to reserve my excessive intake of alcohol until after 6. It just seems to be the done thing, really. You're probably all bellowing why, but you know, in my view, it's always past 6. Somewhere in the world it's past 6. Now what I'm going to do, this is actually a Niagara grey, but most of this on these closing panels seems to have been painted black. The colour itself, sorry, dust, very, very, very dark grey, metallic. That there is not, that's just black. That was stone guard or a schutz or something. Yes, I think. Oh dear Lord. Really summing up this piece of work. We're back together again. So I got the tailgate and everything back on. Still needs to do the bumper. Still needs to do the handle to the tailgate, which is why it wouldn't open. LPG tank's in but not connected up yet because I need to get some gas lube. But yeah, I'm fucking knackered. That was a long day's work. Now, I can't get this to line up properly because that, I believe, is in the wrong bloody place. I tried pulling it out a little bit and it lines up at the bottom, but not there. There's not a lot I can do with it because it lines up along there. That bit lines up, that bit's a mile out, this is in the wrong fucking place. I don't quite know how that's happened, but it has. Right, so looking at the ABS fault, I've been around the block and the ABS light didn't go off. The traction control light went off as the pump got up to pressure, which is normal. But then as soon as I moved, the ABS light didn't extinguish, and of course the traction control light then comes back on again, indicating a fault. The customer advises me that there were no codes on the system. Well, I found those 3. So these 3 probably relate to this particular incident because I couldn't get the ABS light to behave properly. I cleared these 3 and now the system works again. But the underlying problem with this car is that when you're braking and just before you come to a standstill, the ABS kicks in, which is quite disconcerting. And it happened about 4 out of 5 times when I've just been around the block. So we've got here 214, 412 and 512. So we look at 214, this is just in the Hinge manual here. So 214 just indicates front left, too large an air gap. The sensor has been forced out by exciter ring. Check sensor settings for damage to exciter ring. Check bearing end flow. So I'll check the bearing end flow on the front left and we'll see what that's doing. The next one I've got is 412. They're not actually in numerical order, which is weird. 412, front left, wiring or sensor, or wiring 2 sensors broken or sensor resistance too high. Okay? Could just be a dirty connection. I don't know yet. 512 is front right, sensor or wiring has intermittent fault. So, interesting, huh? So, what I'm going to do, I think, on this... Hello, Dale's car. So, each of the wheel sensors has a loom, and it normally goes down through the same hole as the brake lines go to each of the front corners. So in this particular case, I can see there's the connector there. So the connector is just there, and I'll go into this in a bit more detail in a second. There's quite a lot of stuff in this engine bay. It's quite packed. First and foremost, though, what I'll do is I'll jack up the front of the car, and I'm going to just going to double check to make sure that the wheel bearings are in tolerance and we haven't got any swivel pin end float. Because these swivel pins, I mean, they do wear out. And the hub can then cause all manner of problems because obviously the wheel's oscillating backwards and forwards, and the ABS sensor, or the exciter ring for the ABS on the front axle, is actually located on the CV joint, on the outer edges of the CV joint. So the brake fluid low, chap. Does look a bit low, doesn't it? Yeah, I'll tell you, brake fluid's a bit low as well, which isn't helping. I'll top that up. So you can see the traction control module there, and then the standard ABS modulator underneath it. Traction control on these things, by the way, it only works on the back axle, and it only works up to about 15 miles an hour, as I'm led to believe, or certainly it's according to the manual. And basically, if you get yourself into an axle cross situation, or suddenly you're losing traction on both axles, the back axle spinning up, then the traction control will lock the brake on the loose wheel and force the drive to the other. It's a very, very, very primitive form of, well, I say it's primitive, it's a mechanical form of applying the brakes in order to keep you moving. Once you go over 15 miles an hour, then there is no traction control. So it's not, strictly speaking, traction control in the truest sense when you're thinking about kind of like sticking to the road when you're going around a racetrack. No, 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 no. No, it's just literally to get you out of a tight spot. You're on slippery grass with road tyres, like I see Audi Q7s and BMW X5s and so forth. It does amuse me. Wrong tyres on the grass, can't move. Right, okay, enough of that jabbering. Let me get this front end jacked up. Right, just jacked this front left corner off the ground, and there is an incredible amount of play in this. Enormous. It's not, I don't believe it's wheel bearing, so I'm not getting side to side movement, but I'm getting enormous top to bottom movement. I mean, maybe a centimetre at the rim. I don't know if you can see this. You see that moving? That is horrific. Okay, so wheel obviously is off. I mean, you can hear it. What I'm going to do, I actually think it's the swivel pin, but before I strip this bloody thing down and find, oh shit, it's the wheel bearing, I'm going to tighten the wheel bearing first of all. So on these, it's actually not too much of a difficult job. Rubber cap comes off. Underneath this rubber cap, you'll find a circlip here and some shims, because this is obviously the ABS model. Then you undo the drive plate. I've got drive plate gaskets to go back on again. In fact, this one probably looks like it's got some gloop rather than a gasket. It's always a worry. Undo the outer nut, do the inner nut up as tight as it go, and see if we can get rid of that end flow. It's all fairly straightforward stuff really at this point. Let me get this apart, and I am going to report back on my findings. So, tighten the wheel bearing up kind of pretty much where it shouldn't be, so tighten it up an awful. And I can still hear the clicking. I can't feel quite so much play, but I can feel the clicking. I think the hub probably needs to come apart, because I want to sort these wheel bearings out. I think the wheel bearings may be tired or may be contaminated. So I think that's the first thing I'm going to do. It's not that difficult to do. I mean, obviously, much the same as doing a brake disc change on one of these things. Now these discs, let's just get this off again. This doesn't look that old, so I'm wondering if the problem is to do with the but if I put my fucking teeth in with the wheel bearings, but I can't do that up any tighter. I don't like leaning on these things, I don't like crushing them, but obviously you can undo the thing. So I think I'm going to pull this apart and see what is going on inside here. Firstly, there is a washer, good news. The disc has been replaced at some point, it's a fairly new disc, and the pads are fairly new as well, so I think someone's been in here and replaced this lot. It's a possibility that the bearings didn't get tightened up properly, but the lube in here is looking quite, like it's not been changed in a while. So then I was kind of proceeding with taking the hub off and seeing if I could just give it a damn good clean out and work out what's going on in there, and of course this bolt here is not playing nicely. It's not uncommon for these things to seize in, and when you try and get them out, it's not uncommon for the damn things to snap off either. Yeah, so all in all, a pain in the bollocks, really. I'm going to try and just clean up around the edges there. I don't want to put any heat in it because obviously we've got the flexi pipes and the brake lines and so forth near it. So, worst case scenario on this is I end up cutting the damn thing off and drilling it out in situ. There is enough room to get the drill in there. But that's a pain, isn't it? Yes, Richard, yes it is. Now the other thing is someone's replaced the brake lines. Looks like the copper up here because it's going green. Not a huge issue. I mean, the lines are there, they're in place, and you can see here the end of the ABS sensor as it goes down and into the top of the hub. So I wanted to lift that up as well before I put all this thing back together again, which I was going to do after I'd taken the hub off to give me a bit more room. Obviously I need to get the brake caliper out of the way as well, but there's no point, pardon me, getting the brake caliper out of the way until I've got this bolt out, which I think is going to be a drill job, I'm afraid. Right, the safest way to do this was to use a belt sander to you grind the head of the bolt off, and then you can see there's the remains of the bolt there. But now I can undo the bolts of the caliper and lift the caliper out of the way. However, Lady Fake farts in my face once more, and the bloody ABS sensor actually goes through the middle of it all. Whereas I think the actual ABS sensor should be the other side of that, so I'm going to have to try and lift the ABS sensor out, I think, sooner rather than later. This whole fucking thing is turning into an absolute balls ache of a job. But there you can see, as the ABS sensor goes down, and obviously it's got the pipe the wrong side of it. I don't want to start bleeding brakes, it's just too much fucking aggravation. And you can see here that the brake shield is fired as well. Right, onwards. And there we have the ABS sensor. I've got a feeling that wasn't pushed down far enough because normally you wouldn't find too much grease on the end of this thing. There is quite a bit of contamination though in there. Some of that was as I've just pulled it out, but you can see it's covered in grit and grime. So I'll give it a clean up. It's out of the way of the brake lines now, so now I can release the brake caliper and get the hub off. And then we can see what is going on. Right, okay, there you can see the caliper is off now, complete with the hydraulic system intact. Yeah, we are now ready to pull this this disc and everything off the hub. What I'll do is I'll move the brake pads out of the way. I don't want to get those contaminated with anything. And then this can all come off here. I'm going to need to take this plate off the top here in order to drill that. I don't want any contamination, etc., to go inside the hub. Obviously, because of the nature of this bloody thing, you get dirt and crap all round the outside of the hub, and you can see here already there's quite a lot of shit around where the ABS sensor goes in. So I just need to make sure that's all clean before I disturb anything. But let me get this this disc off. It's just a case of pulling it off now. In fact, why don't you watch? Obviously supporting the bearings, and then the whole thing comes off intact. And then we've got the stub axle. Stub axle, CV joint. I don't really want to take this thing apart any further. There's quite a lot of shit and stuff around here. It's just normal stuff. You can see where the brake back plate has completely disintegrated. It's not uncommon, really not uncommon, especially on a car of this age. So I think my next trick is going to be to see now whether I can find any play. I might need to disconnect the steering arms. They look like they are nylocks. They are. That should be fairly straightforward then to get the steering arms off, and then I can probably do more of a reliable assessment on the the actual top pin at that point. Now, the actual ABS sensor here looks like it might have been replaced at some point, so I'm wondering if we've got a bit of a long-standing issue here that's been going on for some time, and that all of the ABS sensors have been replaced, etc, etc, etc. You know how these things go. Right, let's get this thing apart. Okay. Right, so I cleaned up the top plate up there first of all, so just whacked the, well, didn't whack, just pushed the the sensor back in, and did that. Now, just get to the two steering arms. And the main reason for doing this is you can get a good feeling for how fucked the swivel bearings are. And these are fucked. They're not a little bit fucked. They are absolutely, I mean, I've got, so tight spot, and then it kind of hits a notch in the straight ahead position, and then there's another tight spot. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo the retaining ring off the back here, and I think it's going to need to come apart. I better tell the customer. It's not in the best of shape, really. Nor's this splash guard. I'm not quite sure what it's actually doing here. Not a lot. Yeah, that's the straight ahead position, and it just feels horrible. Absolutely horrible. Right, okay.